Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tablas Creek Instagram Live conversation. I'm your host, Jason Haas. My guest this week is somebody I've looked up to for as long as I've known her. Her name is Janie Heuck. She is the managing partner at Brooks Winery up in the Willamette Valley. And she, along with we, are co-founders of the Wine Atlas Collective. So I am super excited to talk to her about what she does at Brooks, as well as what she does at the Wine Atlas Collective. But while we wait for people to join, as I always do, I will share a few pictures of what's going on here at the vineyard. So we finished harvesting last week. So that means that we are at the washing stuff and putting it away phase. So this is our sorting table and our destemmer and some of our bins. We picked our olives this week, so we have this pretty picture that Ian took of olives in the bin. We are laying out straw on the vineyard roads to keep erosion to a minimum. It is supposed to rain the next few days, which is great. It's the right time of year for it to start raining in a serious way. So it looks like we're going to get maybe 2 or 3 inches of rain, which would be just perfect. What else is going on? Washing tanks and putting them away, open top fermenters that are of no use for this time of year. The vineyard itself is starting to look very autumnal. I have a picture kind of looking out into the clouds that we have today, which are fun. I got a little longer view where you can see over some quinoas and syrah vines into the gathering clouds of the storm. So it's starting to feel like fall, which is good because it is fall. The vines themselves are starting to lose their leaves, but again, all of this is exactly as it's supposed to be. So we're ready for the rain. We are excited for the year, excited for the wines that we have in the cellar, and ready to turn to a quieter time. So I'm going to stop sharing pictures. I am going to invite Janie to join. As our test did yesterday. So the technology is amazing when it works. How you doing, Janie?
Good. How are you, Jason?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Doing great. Awesome. So I gave a super quick intro. I'm not sure if you were watching, but so you are managing director at Brooks Winery. Is that the correct title?
That is.
Awesome. So I always like to start by asking people how they got into wine. And I know that in your case, the story is both kind of a tragic one and a really inspiring one. Would you be okay sharing it?
Sure. It's been 21 years, so it's been quite the journey. But I got into wine unexpectedly. I was a stay-at-home mom in California with my 2 young kids, and unfortunately, my brother passed away unexpectedly at the age of 38 back in 2004. And he had 5 vintages under his belt, and it was in September, so it was right before harvest. And I got to Oregon, which is where we were born and raised, and I was sat down by 12 winemakers, all of which were kind of the rock stars of his generation and still today. And they were concerned about a couple things. I mean, obviously, when who was going to help those growers that year and take the fruit that Jimi had contracted for, they wanted to make sure the growers were going to be okay. So they all offered to take the fruit and to pay for it. They then offered to make the wine for free to give me an opportunity to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And really had no clue. He had an 8-year-old son. Our parents had passed away. Like I was really only the matriarch left of the Brooks family besides my nephew. And I really fell in love with those people and their generosity and the industry. And I had never been so surrounded by a group of people passionate about what they were doing and not competitive and not about profit. Like it was a really different world than what I had worked in, and got a lot of help along the way and a lot of people who offered to support. And I feel like now looking back 21 years later, it was really a gift he gave me to help me find something in my life that I wanted to do because I loved it and not just because I was going to get a good salary, because clearly I don't, or make a lot of money because clearly I don't. But what my heart gets out of this and my mind and my soul, I couldn't trade for the world. So I'm super thrilled to be part of this industry.
That's so cool. So I'm curious, like, so Jimmy went into wine. Was wine a part of your family life growing up? Was it on your, like, your parents' dining table? Like, how did he get into it?
Not at all. And what's crazy is that we grew up in Portland, so the Willamette Valley was in our
Right.
backyard. But my only knowledge of the wine industry literally was having my senior prom in a vineyard or dinner. Jimmy graduated from Linfield, so he was kind of immersed in McMinnville when he went to college, but was playing football and ended up not knowing what he wanted to do for a living. So he bought a one-way ticket to Europe, and he would take odd jobs to earn enough money to keep traveling. And one of the first jobs he worked was with the Philippe Deschamps family in Beaujolais working harvest. And he returned there for 6 harvests in a row. And that's where he fell in love with wine and vineyards. And he also fell in love with a woman from Poland at the time and got married and had a baby. And it was then he decided that he should move back to Oregon to raise his family. So he got involved in the Oregon wine industry back in 1996.
Cool. And were you at all involved in Brooks at that point as he was building it?
No, no. The closest thing was he had come to visit me here in California, and I actually took him to a couple retailers that I knew that sold wine. But that was it. I didn't know anything about what he was doing or biodynamic farming. Like I really knew I was drinking big buttery Chardonnay from California with all the other stay-at-home moms in the neighborhood. Like that was my wine knowledge.
Oof. So you have, if I remember right, an accounting degree. Is that,
Correct.
am I right? So,
Yeah.
like, I'm curious, like, as you came into this business that was, as I see it, sort of built as a labor of love. What was the state of the business as you came in?
Jimmy was making 2,500 cases. He probably had distribution in 3 or 4 markets and was pretty much on top of selling through his production at that time. But the challenge for me when I got involved is he was making wine at Mesara Winery, and that's where he was making Brooks. So he really had no overhead. He had no space, he had no equipment. He was buying his fruit and his packaging, but that was about it. And so I had to move somewhere, and started incurring a whole lot of overhead.
Right.
And the question became, am I going to raise prices or am I going to grow volume? And accessibility has been part of our heart and soul since we started. Like affordable price points, making our wines accessible, over delivering value is what we've always striven to do. So I grew volume, which then we all know, accounting wise or not, that's a lot of cash because we got as high as 27,000 cases back in 2017. We've since leveled off production, which is great on a number of levels. Um, but it's taken a couple decades to get here.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So like there's so many things I want to talk to you about, but that was one of the questions that I had, is that I have always admired your pricing, like that. Um, it sort of shows that, like, farming the right way, treating your people the right way, being a good member of the community doesn't have to come with a luxury price tag. And like, I'm curious, it sounds like that's a conscious thing, that you really tried to build a brand at a price that people can buy and drink and enjoy. Is that right?
Absolutely. Super important. I also know what it costs me to make wine, right? And I probably don't come at this as much to earn a living from it as much as I'm trying to continue a legacy and bring a product to market that has heart and soul and can be reached and has a good story and is part of people's daily lives and livelihood, instead of being some sought after culty,
Right.
high priced wine. I mean, that's just never been our model. And it really was definitely not who Jimmy was.
Yeah, and I talk about that a lot with Tablas Creek also. I mean, and even
Yeah.
with Beaucastel. I mean, Beaucastel is one of the great wines in the world, and it's like under $100 retail. So, like, and we think at Tablas Creek it's the same thing. It's so important to have wines that people can feel good about buying and drinking on a regular basis. Because there's certainly plenty of great expensive wines, but
Yeah.
not as many great moderate wines.
Yeah.
Um, and how much of this is? I mean, I know that. So your nephew Pascal, right? Is that his name?
Yes.
Um, he's he is the owner of Brooks, right? And
He
how, in
is.
practical terms, how does this work? How does your management of it and his ownership of it, like how does that all work?
You know, from the very first day, his mom and I kind of split duties. She was like, "Will you take care of this winery thing? And I'm going to raise him the best that I can." And we agreed on that. And he's always been welcome to be part of Brooks, know anything he wants to know about Brooks, but there was never any pressure for him to become involved in the business. And over the years, especially as he's gotten older, he's definitely become kind of my confidant. But he really has had he worked harvest for us in 2018 when he graduated from college. But that's about it. And we've really let him go on his journey, which has been pretty fantastic. We have good news that's recent to share, but he moved to Europe in 2019 with his French girlfriend and actually worked harvest at Domaine de Champs in 2019, which was pretty awesome to work for the same family. And then he has worked 5 harvests now at Domaine Ostertag. So he's kind of kept winery life and vineyards in his daily living. Plus, he managed a garden for a restaurant group in Paris for the last 5 years. So farming is important to him. And he made the decision about a year ago that he wanted to go to viticulture and enology school in France. And recently just told us that in 2 years he wants to come back to Brooks and be part of production and part of our vineyards. And as I like to remind him, the face of the brand and, someday taking over my podcast that I'm yet to launch.
Awesome. Um, cool. So I also want to ask you about your commitment to being a business that kind of does right by its community. I mean, you are B Corp, you're biodynamic certified, you're 1% for the planet. Like, was that something that Jimi started and you have continued, or was that something that was something that has been a part of things more recently?
Jimmy brought the philosophy of biodynamics to the winery. He actually brought it to Oregon, to the Oregon grape growers back in the mid 90s, and started farming what's now our estate vineyard biodynamically in 2002. And it's always been part of who we are. We didn't get certified till 13. It just wasn't on the top of my to-do list. But in 2019, when we decided to level off production, our shift then was how do we get better at everything we do? So we've made a lot of investments in the cellar and our equipment and our team and our grapes that we source, continuing in our farming. But then I brought to it, how can we even become more sustainable than we already are? And that's when we became a certified B Corporation in 2019 and then members of 1% for the planet.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's so again, it's sort of it's a statement that like this is not something that you have to be selling $200 bottles in order to do, and I think it's a really important statement to make.
Yeah, and I feel like again, wine is about community, and people have such a vast array of different interests and what's important to them that I hope that Brooks can have enough pillars out there that not only are we accessible, but people are passionate about our ethos and why we do what we do too.
Cool. Um, Obviously, the last couple of years have been a challenge for American wine, and I'm curious. Do you feel like the pricing structure that you have and the connections that you have to these other more kind of social good movements, do you feel like that has helped you in this environment?
I do, because it's a good story to tell, right? Not only our family story, but also the fact that we're putting out these other efforts to try to make sure that we're using our winery as a platform for good, right? And not just for profit. That's kind of the B Corp tagline, but I think it's important. When I built our winery back in 2014, I thought, I'm not going to build a typical tasting room. I'm going to build a place that I would want to hang out in. So a lot of the decisions I make are kind of about what do I think is good for people to want to participate in all of our efforts. So whether that's a sales rep, or one of our distributors or a buyer, I hope that we have a broad enough umbrella of good that everybody can find something that they are excited about.
And that's totally in keeping with what like all of the research suggests is that people want first of all to support products that they feel like they connect with in a more meaningful way than just that they are a purchaser,
Yeah.
and that the ability to create experiences like that is an aspect of the business that is doing well and is also the best way to create a really durable fan.
Yeah. Agreed. Wholeheartedly.
So I'd love you to talk about the mix of wines that you make because like, you make Pinot Noir, of course. You're in the Willamette. You make Pinot Noir, but you are also a real specialist in Riesling, and I'm
Mhm.
curious as to how that came about, and um, would love you to talk a little bit about how you feel like that opens up opportunities, but also might present challenges in a place which is so known for one specific thing.
Yeah, that was Jimmy. When Jimmy got to the Willamette Valley, Riesling was one of it was the highest planted white varietal in the beginning of Oregon wine country.
I did.
And in the 80s and 90s, growers just figured out A, it was hard to sell, B, it's hard to grow just as a plant. Um, and they started ripping it out and replacing it with Pinot Gris primarily. And Jimmy's kind of an underdog guy, right? He came into the valley. He's like, wait, this is the perfect climate to make amazing Riesling. Why aren't we making Riesling? And so he went on a hunt to find every vineyard that was still planted in the valley with Riesling. So we're very fortunate. Like our vines were planted back in 1973, but he found our estate, what became our estate vineyard, because it had 5 acres of Riesling. So we work with some of the oldest sources. That has been great, right? Growers that grow Riesling and love Riesling know that we're going to take good care of it. So we've had access to definitely some of the highest quality fruit in the Willamette Valley. When we go into markets, it does differentiate us from what another Willamette Valley producer may carry because typically they're going to have Chardonnay and Pinot Gris, and we have an Alsatian style white blend and a Willamette Valley Riesling. From a sales standpoint, sure, I will tell you I've sold more Riesling in my life than Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir is not a hard sell, and it's one person at a time, right? It's finding those believers. We tend to have a lot of distributors that are actually importers too, so they understand Riesling really well, and that's their market. So that's worked out well. It's been interesting from a collegial standpoint in Oregon and from a critic standpoint because so many of the critics that review Oregon are very immersed in Chardonnay
Right.
first off, and then maybe Pinot Gris second. And we're often this outlier that whether or not they've reviewed Riesling from other regions or haven't, there's definitely there's a difference there, I think. But also, Claire and I were just talking, our winemaker, there's a symposium in Germany, and she was mentioned to me, she's like, it's just kind of lonely making Riesling in the Willamette Valley, right? She doesn't have a lot of people to taste with and cellars to go into and people to bounce ideas off of and troubleshoot with. It's much more of a global group for her, which can be a challenge too.
Cool. Yeah, I feel all of that.
Yes, I'm sure you do.
Okay, let's talk about the Wine Atlas Collective. We just got a lovely comment from a fan in the Finger Lakes who's been a member of Tablas Creek since 2004 and had an opportunity to visit Brooks in September. So
Nice.
I would love you to give your elevator pitch that you give to people about what the Wine Atlas Collective is and does.
So the genesis of it was, we're always trying to be better. We're always trying to improve. And especially when you come to things like wine clubs, they tend to be, a lot of things in our industry tend to be a lot alike everywhere you go, right? So we're always trying to differentiate ourselves. And we were talking about how do we do better for our out-of-state wine club members because they don't get to come visit as often, so they don't necessarily get the on-site perks. So what perks
Right.
could we give them? And this idea from my GM actually came up about, well, what if you lived in Missouri and you could go to a winery in Missouri but get treated like a Brooks member? And I thought, it's a pretty cool idea. So took that, talked to you, talked to Leah Cole, different people that I've gotten to know really through Wine America and just kind of having friends on the national playing field. Riesling, of course, in the Finger Lakes, but thought, what if we all banded together and had reciprocal benefits for our wine club members? And it's not a unique idea idea in general, right? There's a lot of industries that do this. Country clubs do it, ski clubs do it, yacht clubs do it, but wine doesn't do it. And then as this ball started rolling, right? So exciting that across the eight of us, we have eight different regions, we have 43 varietals, we have, an amazing audience of 45,000 club members. Like, and we're giving them something that is truly unique and special and beneficial for the wine lover for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know when you called and we talked about the idea, it really felt to me like something new. It's a yes, there are plenty of groups that work together in wine, but they tend to be based around a region that people share or a particular grape variety that people share. So I, I I feel like this has been very conscious the way that you have created this in terms of the size, in terms of the scope, in terms of the wineries um, that 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 you invited to be involved. And I'm wondering, like, what to you signifies a good Wine Atlas Collective member winery? Like, what were the criteria you were looking at?
So being family led and or owned was really important. Having sustainability top of mind and really being leaders in the sustainability category, whether that be in their region or nationwide, was very important to me. Being innovative leaders, also, again, whether that's within their region or nationwide, and the care about hospitality. So, so much of our industry is 100% distribution in the wholesale market. And our business personally is 2/3 direct to consumer. So it matters a lot to me. And again, it's back to that people touching, right? Like if I'm not making a difference in somebody's life, like really, why am I doing this? And to find like-minded people about caring about hospitality, about caring about their wine club members, about the experience that people receive that's above and beyond the amazing quality of the wines that we all produce is really paramount to me in terms of being part of this group.
Yeah, I remember we were talking about wineries, like potential winery members at the beginning, and there was a winery that we were considering, but they didn't have a tasting room. Like, and we were
Yeah,
like, how does it work to have these reciprocal visiting benefits at a place that you can't visit? Like,
yeah,
so, there are certain things that I feel like the wineries have to have in order for them to make sense in this context.
for sure. And space is definitely one of them.
Um, so I know, like we've seen, I went and looked at the numbers this morning. We have seen 145. We have 145 visits from other members of Wine Atlas Collective wineries
Hmm.
since we launched this in July. And over that same period, our tasting room traffic has been up 7.5%. This follows the first half of the year where our tasting room traffic was down 5.6%. That feels not unconnected. I mean, obviously, the numbers are not just driven by these Wine Atlas Collective members, but I'm wondering if, like, you had any success stories that you wanted to share, either from Brooks or that you've heard from other member wineries.
Yeah, it's been pretty consistent. The last I looked at our numbers probably 2 weeks ago, we had 98 orders from people who were members of other wineries in the collective, $20,000 in revenue. Some of those were e-commerce, but most of them were in person. And I think everybody has felt that same general enthusiasm for sure. Very excited about our virtual event because the on-premise thing is working really, really well. And I think as people continue to make a destination to one of the wine regions that one of our wineries in, it's a no-brainer, right? That they're going to go to that winery for sure. But doing the e-commerce, and now that we're going to do our virtual event too, to where we can reach the people who maybe aren't traveling or can't travel, and it doesn't make as much sense for to be able to share our stories and share our wines, is really exciting.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. That virtual tasting is going to be December 3rd. We worked with a company up in the Bay Area called Master of the World that does rebottling and shipping of samples of wine. We worked with them a lot at Tablas Creek in the like aftermath of COVID when we started to do virtual tastings, and we did like virtual pickup parties for our wine club. And this feels to me like an even better use of that service that they do, because they can take wines from all eight of us from 6 states and eight regions, put them into a single pack, and then people can buy this pack and get this little 180 milliliter bottle of each of eight wines. Like that just feels like so much fun.
Yeah, yeah, I can't wait. And again, with everything that we're doing, there's more ideas and more opportunity, right? Because we were all only able to put one wine in. So how do we flip the switch to the next round of wines?
Yeah.
There's a lot to do.
Um, so I know that there are other wineries who have inquired. There's some that have reached out to me. I know there's ones that have reached out to you. Um, can you share a little bit about what your vision is for the like longer term um, structure or size or scope of the Wine Atlas Collective?
Yeah, I came in with my vision for sure. But through the course of all the really generative meetings that the eight of us have had, I think we've done a really good job of kind of point counterpoint and challenging each other with ideas and vision and movement. And I like to move fast, and everybody slowed me down, which was definitely in the best interest of the collective. And I'm not sure where it's going to go. We have about 55 wineries that have filled out the form of interest to apply to be part of the collective. As you know, we agreed as a group, because this is so new, that we want to take a year to really fine tune what our offerings are, what makes sense before we bring other wineries potentially into the fold, and possibly not.
Right.
Depending on which direction we go and grow, I think we're all open to this continuing to be a successful model, whatever that means for our wine club members too.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I really love about it is like from a wine club member's perspective, like you have sort of this warm introduction almost wherever you go in terms of American wine country. Like
Yeah.
it's um, like you know that you can go to a place and you'll get treated as though you were a member there. Like what a nice kind of security blanket to have as you're exploring the diversity of American wine.
Yeah. I would love that, right?
Back to the whole idea of making an experience that you would like yourself.
Yes. Yes.
Uh,
Exactly.
I do want to give a little plug to anybody who might be watching who is in the wine industry. That this is one of the things that we'll be talking about. I am moderating a panel at the Direct to Consumer Wine Symposium in January, talking about kind of new ways to win with wine marketing, and you'll be one of the panelists. And so, anybody who wants to learn more about this or ask detailed questions, like go to the DTC Wine Symposium. It's a great event. It supports Free the Grapes, which is a great organization, and we'll both be there.
Yeah, and you know what I think is important too about that, Jason, that like one of my takeaways, you and I are in a very interesting situation because we can go to these symposiums, get great ideas, and come home and implement them. I feel like a lot of times there's a stop between the person who attends some of these symposiums and the decision maker. And they go home with these ideas, and the excitement doesn't translate. The need to do it doesn't translate. And so I really hope that we can provide practical enough information and be resources for a lot of the people who do attend the symposium, if they aren't the owners and decision makers, to help people get things implemented when they leave, right? That's really what you want out of these symposiums for sure.
I mean, I always come away from this particular symposium with like 5 or 6 pages of notes of do this, do this, do this, look at this.
Yeah.
So I feel like it is very practical in its focus, and
Yes.
I think we will both do what we can to make sure that the lessons that we leave people with are pretty actionable.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so how I want to ask you how people learn more about a handful of different things. So how do people learn more about the Wine Atlas Collective?
Well, there is a website for the Wine Atlas Collective. It's wineatlascollective.com. So that gives information on all of the wineries, and all of those wineries have a link back to their websites that talk about them. Kind of, they have introductory bundle packs if you're interested in looking at those wines. talks all about their philosophies, their varietals. So there's a lot of information. Definitely. There's also an Instagram. So for the Wine Atlas Collective, we've done a good job of sharing stories as we're all in the news and different initiatives of the collective as well.
Cool. We just got a question that got lobbed in, asking if we've seen an impact on member retention or churn from the collective. I know this is a longer term thing. Do you have anything even anecdotally about that?
I've had members tell me it's definitely a reason to stay. It's really hard to measure without doing some sort of satisfaction survey. But right now, I mean, at least for Brooks, our club has been level for the last year, which to me is a win.
That's a environment.
So it'd be nice to see if that actually starts to, if we keep a little bit more retention going into this next year, if that doesn't start increasing. But that's a tough one to measure. As I talk to club members, and I talk to your club members when they're in my tasting room, and Ridge's club members when they're in my tasting room, they are thrilled with the opportunity to have this benefit.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's something that we'll only know kind of gradually, I think, as it plays out with time. But we all know that one of the things that we hear most if people leave a wine club is, oh, I want to rotate and try new wines. Like all of a sudden,
Yeah.
being a member of our clubs is how you get to try these great new wines in a very kind of curated way.
Yeah, and I love that, we started with just on-premise benefit, and then we did add e-commerce. So there's the e-commerce benefit. So if people can't travel, they can buy online, and now we're doing the virtual events. So I feel like we're trying to hit all the avenues that we can to really expose all of our members to the wonderfulness of each other.
Awesome. Okay, so how do people learn more about Brooks?
Well, brookswine.com. We have a pretty robust website for sure. I also write an email, so a lot like you, very personable. I write an email every Sunday that kind of gives highlights and what's going on and what's new. I've been doing that for 5 years, and it really does come from me, so people can reach right back out to me. Yeah, or come visit.
Awesome. And then finally, if people want to follow you, see like where you're speaking or things that you're doing, what's the best way for them to do that?
Definitely subscribe for that email because I do put my schedule in there often. I have my own Instagram handle and my own Facebook, Janie Brooks Heuck, but also the Brooks Winery Instagram and Facebook also have a lot of information too.
Cool. Well, Janie, thank you for joining me, taking a little time out of your Wednesday to share your story, to talk Wine Atlas Collective, and just for being such a great piece of the wine community.
Wow, right back at you.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. Thank you, everyone who joined us. I will be back in 2 weeks. My guest in 2 weeks is going to be Tom Wark, who is, I think, one of the most interesting and controversial voices in wine in a great way.
Yeah.
So I look forward to seeing people in 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Janie, I'm sure I will see you on a Zoom call before then, but I'll look forward to seeing you in January.
Okay. Take care. Thanks so much, Jason, for having me.
Thanks, everybody.